Thank you very much, Lorna. And can I firstly start by saying I'm going to address the questions that were received from stakeholders that were addressed to the Department of Agriculture. I'm going to go down through them before trying to capture some of the questions that have come in that last session, some of which are for the UK rather than ourselves. I just also want to introduce colleagues who are on the line. You might just put on your videos if you don't mind. I have Michael Moran, Micheál O'Mahony, Fiona Reardon, Rob Doyle, Tony Devlin, Hazel Sheridan, who is head of our Import Controls Operations Division. And there was a query in from somebody in relation to some import operations matters. I have Damien Flynn, our Agricultural Councillor in London, soon to be head of Brexit and International Trade Division. We're going to switch roles. Well, I'm not going to London, but Damien's coming in here from the start of September. And then we have Conor O'Mahony from our Dairy Meat and Milk Policy Division, who looks after some of the dairy certification. So in terms of the questions that were received, so one, how will the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine support implementation of the requirements laid out in the UK border operating model published on the 20th of July, in particular the requirement for product of animal origin goods that the consignment to be inspected by an official veterinarian in order to verify that the consignment's contents meet the health requirements of the destination country. So firstly, the official controls regulation governs and sets the rules around certification, and it allows for a systems-based approach to certification. And that is a model that has worked very well across the globe, and that's the model that Lorna has said in her presentation that we're going to follow. Question number 2, when the health cert is ready for collection, will DAFM send an electronic copy of the health cert to the exporter? Yes is the answer. If yes, is it sent around the same time as the original health cert is collected? So as soon as the health cert is generated, it is going to be sent, uploaded and sent to the exporter. You know, when it's collected is a matter for the FBO. Some people send a courier, but as soon as we generate it, we're going to send it. Does the exporter need to apply for a health cert 7 or 10 days in advance? And are these working days? There have been some mixed messages on this. The ask is for 5 working days, but this is just the initial application. So it's really about getting a heads up from our point of view that the consignment is going to Great Britain, and obviously we're very much aware that it's only closer to the time that the detailed consignment requirements, including, for example, the weights or the container number is known. But for us, it allows us to start looking at maybe some of the supporting documentation and things like that. So get it in well in advance. Should the FBOs contact their UK importers? UK customers to make sure they are aware of the UK pre-notification requirements to be done on IPAFs, i.e. the UK's new import control system. Well, firstly, let me say that communication between the Irish exporter and the GB importer is key. They are a key part of this supply chain, and it's important that everybody knows who's responsible for each step in the process. From my point of view, there are some mixed messages around IPAFs that we absolutely have been endeavouring to bottom out, and we need to bottom out completely in the period ahead. We know from the trials that an Irish exporter can register. We know that they can do the advance notification, but it's also clear that so can a GB importer, and that's fine, that's understood. We need to have clarity around who's responsible for the consignment, which is a key factor that I understand the UK authorities will want. But in my opinion, we need to have absolute clarity on that. And I think that both the Irish and UK authorities need to work together to try and bottom this out for once and for all. If the FBO uses an Irish meat agent to procure customers in the UK, who should notify IPAFs for the pre-notification of the importer? Is it the meat agent, the UK customer, or the Irish FBO? Well, in my opinion, it can be all three. But the key here is whoever notifies IPAFs is responsible for the load. At least that was my understanding. Including engaging with the BCP, including matters in relation to if the consignment is rejected or if there are queries on the consignment. Should the exporting Irish FBOs all be registered in IPAFs in any case, and how do they do this? You know, I would say yes, taking a cautious approach in order to mitigate any risk in the supply chain. The links are there for the production environment and they can be circulated. And what I would say is register users. Once you go in, you should register users in your business. So you don't want just one person within the business responsible for doing all of these IPAFs notifications. I would add the details for your customers, but don't raise any notifications until just before the 1st of October, okay? Where FBOs transit the UK en route to EU, will traces, export health certs be required for these consignments to re-enter the EU, or will the GB transit certs be sufficient? So GB transit certs on their own will not be sufficient. There are EU and UK requirements for animals and goods that transit the land bridge. The detailed information on what those requirements are available on the www.gov.ie/Brexit webpage. And the devil is in the detail. Read them. And obviously, there will be hopefully a further webinar in what month are we in now? July, in August maybe. Or in September, hopefully, or sorry, not in August, in September, I beg your pardon, on the land bridge, because clearly the land bridge is a very important route to market. With regard to the specific training session on individual export health certs, will these be circulated or published? So, in relation to the specific training sessions on the individual export health certs, they are live sessions, mics on, very interactive. So because of that, we're not recording them, but we will publish the presentations that are made at those webinars. Obviously, we have done a number of webinars around traces and other systems, and some very useful webinars on our website and indeed on the website of other agencies. And they are on the system, they're ready to be used. And I would really encourage people to look at those links. And again, the links to those pages are on the last page of my presentation, which will be circulated to attendees. With regard to further testing, are there plans to carry out a day in the life and a week in the life of tests across the various sectors? These tests should be end-to-end with industry, DAF and DEFRA, including the border control posts. Well, firstly, we are doing end-to-end tests. We are living a day in the life of our FBOs, and we've engaged with them on those trials, both internal and on the end-to-end tests. In relation to involving the border control posts, so the border control posts aren't operational at the moment, and they won't be from the 1st of October, but there are plans to do live end-to-end tests involving the UK authorities and their border control posts in advance of the go-live dates for the BCPs. But I should also manage expectations here. We clearly can't do a trial with everybody, with every food business operator, but what I can commit to is that the learnings from the trials will be shared. Lastly, I think Ella picked up, are there owners in DAFM and DERA for the prepared consumer foods category, and can we work together to ensure we have an end-to-end solution that is fully tested and works? This group could also be a point of escalation to resolve issues post October 1st and 1 January. So we did have an escalation group. There was senior officials that met in the early days pre 1 January, and since the 1st of January on the import side. And that group is now operational and is dealing with issues that are coming up in relation to the UK import requirements. So I can assure you that we will engage. There are leads in the department, that's Brexit and International Trade Division, and then Lorna Meany in Veterinary International Trade Division. And apologies, I see Tony Devlin on the line as well, another key person on the team, who's head of Veterinary Public Health Inspection System. So and there are others on board. So yes is the answer, there will be teams. So there were the questions we got in, and there were the answers that I've just provided. So I'm going back up to around 10 o'clock. So again, some questions around the so where you have Incoterms, where the Irish exporter is responsible for completing the formalities in order to get the product into GB. So I've addressed that. We'll have to come back to that. We'll have to agree that with our UK colleagues, some joint comms. Cormac, surely the logic is to use the fridge or trailer number on the EHC, which will not change, rather than the truck number. 12 thumbs up beside that. Can I ask somebody on the UK side, please, to take that? I'm not sure, Ella, who you want to address that to. Or do you want to take that yourself?
No, Louise, I think that if it's okay, we might take that one away and then repost it when we send out the ones that we haven't responded to as well. So I think that we might not have the right colleague on the line anymore, if that's all right with you, Louise.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks very much, Ella. So I have Celine O'Neill and Caroline O'Keefe on the line. And it's asking, though, I'm not sure, but just to be clear, can you confirm, will an exci CHED reference be accepted when completing customs for imports to ROI for products of animal origin and live animals being transported GB to NI to ROI? It is not accepted at present. I don't know, Hazel or Celine, do one of you want to come in on that?
Hi, Louise. Sorry, just unmuting myself there. Yeah, it sounds like that person has had a technical issue, maybe in including the health certificate number. So if the person could send the query or get in touch directly with us at brexitqueries@revenue.ie, and we'll go through the scenario with them and make sure it's not a systems issue. In principle, yes, the reference is acceptable because the check will be done in Northern Ireland, so there's no need for a second check to be done in Ireland when the goods arrive here. And what we'll be asking those kind of movements to do is to upload the part of the CHED that has been certified in Northern Ireland to say that the check has been conducted, to upload that with their import declaration in Ireland so that we can clear those goods and be satisfied that the SPS check has been completed. But if they can make contact with us directly, we'll work through the issue with them.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks very much, Celine. So maybe if you can put into the reply on that, just that email address. And what we do is, because I think this issue has come up, I know it has come up. I do think that we need just to provide some comms around that for the trade. So if goods are transiting the UK, Northern Ireland to GB to EU, or Ireland, GB, EU, or vice versa, do BCPs need to pre-notify on IPAFs if the goods are not for the UK market? So firstly, it's not the BCPs, it's the person responsible for the consignment. And Ella, I'll leave it to you, but my understanding is they do need to pre-notify on IPAFs, even if the goods are transiting the UK market.
That's my understanding too, Louise, but I think that for the ones that are remaining for the UK to respond to, we'll get them in writing to you so that we can have the policy leads confirm them. I know that we ran out of time in our section, but I think that's probably the most helpful way so that everyone has it in writing and firmed up. Thank you.
Okay, do ABP consignments going to the UK need to be lodged on traces? No, I don't think. Not lodged on traces. So well, maybe just let's be clear about that. If you need a health cert, okay, so let's be clear. Like I'm thinking of traces from a pre-notification point of view. If you require a health cert, the health cert is been generated on traces, and therefore you need to be registered on traces, and you need to apply for that health cert on traces. In terms of, so that's what the traces aspect is for. If shipping 3+ times per week from Ireland to GB, in order to send the hard copy of the DAFM cert with the consignment, what is the lead-in time necessary for the FBO to apply for their cert and receive it in time for shipping realistically? So look, I've answered that already, but I'm going to let maybe Lorna or somebody else, Tony, come in, or Connor come in on that.
Yeah, I'll just come in there on some of it, and maybe I'll let Tony follow up. But I mean, from the point of view, we're saying 5 working days notice. So in as far as possible, so that you would provide us with all the information you absolutely can as far in advance as possible. That's the key to this, really. And then supply us with the more granular detail which will be needed for certification, you know, closer to the time. So I suppose it's about making sure you have a process set up that you can supply us with the information that we need to do the certification and have all the background documentation in order. The other thing is that the information you supply us is accurate. That's really important as well. So you need to have your process, you need to apply as soon as you know that you have a load. You need to have all the background information in order. And as a general rule, we're saying 5 days notice. Then I think at a local level, you need to be engaging with your certifier on the ground and, you know, identifying your business need to them in how your business works, and then see, you know, what kind of timelines are deliverable. I'll let Tony come in there on that, on the operations end of it.
Thanks. Yeah, I suppose it's really down to local arrangements. So you will probably have repeat customers, and you will know what's happening really in advance. And the quicker we get that information, the better. So you must complete part 1 of the trace certificate. That's the application, and attach all the documents. So the sooner you have those documents ready and submit that, then the sooner they can be reviewed by the veterinary inspector. So if you have multiple loads going to multiple customers, but they're repeat customers, the process is really quite straightforward. So it's a matter of getting used to the trace system, having your customers and your details already uploaded and ready, and then that will simplify the process for the certifying vet. So probably the only delay then will be on the actual documentation that is attached. So whenever that's ready, you submit that and submit that for certification. But you can alert the local veterinary inspector and, you know, local arrangements to understand how often and how frequent and at what times the loads are going. And it will become, to a certain extent, routine once you get it up and running on the system. So it depends on the type of product you're producing, on the complexity of the traces cert. So again, that'll be back to discuss that with your local vet. Get, as was mentioned before, involved in trialing the systems and preparing information on traces that can be reviewed in a kind of a mock system, but that you have an idea then of the timelines that it takes to not only for the veterinary inspector to sign off, but also for you to prepare the documentation and have all the relevant documentation attached to the traces. So hopefully that helps. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Tony, and go ahead, Connor, go ahead.
Put in here, there's been, just to clarify something, there's a lot of talk, quite rightly, about traces, but just in case there's any confusion, traces is used for meat products. For dairy products, you will be applying for UHCs on the DPCS, which is the Dairy Product Certification System. So for anybody who's currently applying for export certs to the rest of the world, you'll be going into the DPCS and you'll be selecting GB the same as you would for any other country. So I just want to clarify that point in case people are walking away with thinking that traces is going to be used for dairy certification. It won't. The same process as both Lorna and Tony discussed. Apply in advance. Give us as much information as you have at that point in time. You will then be allowed to apply at a later stage as well when you have the outstanding information such as your transport and your container details. So it's to give us, we don't want to have an avalanche of unknown certification requirements coming in. That's why we're asking people for advance notice. And so the system allows for 2 stages. One telling us when you're going to have a consignment going, your consignee details, your product details, etc. And then we can examine that and we know when that's coming. And then when you get your final details in terms of container numbers, transport details, ideally the day before dispatch or the day of dispatch, you'll be allowed to submit those details again at that stage. So I don't know if that's an actual question asked by anyone, but that just might be a useful point. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful, Conor. So Ella, again, there's 2 here. Could you please could we check the 1 working day pre-notification is Monday to Friday? Is it Monday to Friday, i.e. the working day? What happens at the weekend and how is that classed? Regards, Alan. And then is it only the health cert that is to be uploaded to the IPAFs pre-notification? So 2 questions around pre-notification, Ella. Can you pick those up? And I know you said you're going to come back around products of animal origin, but just maybe repeat again what you can tell these people.
So I think definitely we want to come back in writing to these, and I'm conscious now that our colleagues are off the line. But I think that, are we talking here about, because I no longer have the questions in front of us.
It's around pre-notification, and is it a 1 working day, 24 hours? What is that? You know, obviously it could be less than that. In other words, can you go in and do the pre-notification and then follow up closer to the time of export with the further details? So maybe come back on that. That'd
be great. I think so. I know that from the 1st of October, you need to be providing an electronic copy of the EHC to the GB importer to upload onto the notification in IPAFs so that those remote documentary checks can be carried out. But of the actual lead-in times, grateful if we can follow up in writing. I think it's a useful thing to have in writing for traders anyway. Okay,
listen, I'm conscious, I know we're over time, but look at it, there's a lot of people still on the line, so I'm going to keep going through these questions. Can I ask Hazel Sheridan, our head of import operations, to come in and answer a query that John has raised in relation to the clearance process in Dublin Port, in particular where you have multiple agency hits on a consignment. If Hazel's there, or maybe Caroline O'Keefe either. So have I still got Hazel on the line?
I don't think you have, Louise. She had connectivity issues. She's been in and out a few times.
Have we Caroline O'Keefe on the line from Revenue? I think we have.
Yes, Hazel, Caroline here, or Louise. No, just to say like that we work with trade on an ongoing basis on improving our procedures in the port for clearing goods. As any of the seminars and webinars that we've done, trade will be aware like that we have improved the communications between the different agencies, in improving our IT systems, giving access to the other agencies now to the revenue systems. And our expectation is, and the feedback we're getting is now that those delays are now not down to systems or procedural issues anymore. So if there's a specific instance that somebody wants to contact us about, and we can see what issues arose, and we can go back then and see if we can retrofit something into that. But in general, our understanding is now, based on feedback from the trade, is that those new procedures are working efficiently.
Okay, thank you very much, Caroline. So there's a question here about composite products with China origin imported to the UK, exported to ROI. Can you tell me what changes on the 1st of October and later in January? Well, firstly, the 1st of October and later in January changes are UK import requirements, and you've inquired about the EU import requirements for composite products with a China origin coming to the UK and then coming on to the ROI. There is detailed information on our website in relation to the requirements for importing composite products into the EU. There were some changes from the 21st of April, and there are further changes that are coming in later in August. What I would do is look at those details on the website. If you don't get the answer you're looking for, contact the Brexit call, please, email address that was at the end of Lorna's presentation. Can the cost for completing SBS certification prior to exporting and the cost for completing the checks at the BCP be explained? What are the costs? How do exporters and importers find out what the costs are, and who will be lying for paying the costs? So let me speak from an Irish perspective. Costs for export certification. At the moment, Ireland, DAFM charges a fee for providing an export health cert for live animals. We are not charging fees for the provision of export certification from the 1st of October, but that may change in the future. There is a significant cost associated with generating export certs. But from our point of view, there will be no fees for export certs from the 1st of October. That is different, obviously, in terms of the BCP checks, again, on goods entering the EU, so entering ROI, there are fees for documentary ID and physical checks. They're laid out in Annex 4 of Regulation 625/2017, and there's detail on our website as to what those BCP fees are. I'm going to hand over to Ella to talk about the fees on entry into the UK BCPs, and you might talk about the charges that are being charged for SBS for certs from GB to Ireland, and they are quite significant in some cases. So go ahead, Ella.
Thanks, Louise. I'm afraid I don't have those in front of me, but I really would like to come back on that in writing again. And I think that we have, it seems, many to respond to in writing. So yeah, I think that the DEFRA colleagues that joined us for the first part of this webinar, they've now dialed off because that section was finished. So yeah, grateful if we can take those away, and then we'll be able to respond in full. And we're happy to then take any follow-up questions on those too. Thanks, Louise.
Thanks, Ella. So a question for DAFM from a composite products. With the manufacturing cycle being a 7 days process, but the certification process not, what supports will be in place for the significant cost of stock build and holding on site? When DAFM say business need to change their model, the cost of these may be more than a number of businesses are likely to be able to bear. Example, a truck park of extra pallet spaces on site are significant investment, which ultimately means higher food prices for consumers. Resourcing the process of certification has to be far more cost effective than every exporter in the country investing in new space and cost. What plans are in place to get a fit for purpose certification team and processes as an alternative? Who would like to take that? Tony, it's your lucky day.
I suppose. Yeah, you can hear me, yes?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, there's a lot there, I suppose. Look, we only have a limited resource of veterinary inspectors for certification process. We've increased the resource in that element. Look, there are changes as a result of Brexit that I suppose we have no control over, and everybody is changing, everybody is learning, and there are, I suppose, costs, hidden costs. I really can't say much more than that, other than that from our side, we're doing everything we can. We're working tirelessly to try and get a streamlined process between ourselves, and we're working closely with our UK colleagues to tease out the issues and make the process smooth and reduce delays so that products can transport as quickly and efficiently as possible. But there will be changes, and we acknowledge that, and there probably will be extra costs, but I suppose some of that is outside our control. So I can't offer any more comfort to the question. Thanks.
Okay. look, I think there is engagement happening also locally, and you need to engage with your local VI around the actual requirements in your business as well. So look, there's a lot of questions that we've kind of covered before. And I'm conscious now that it's nearly 11:20. So what I am going to suggest is that we pick up on the other questions that are in the chat, and we will respond. The answers will be circulated to all who have attended the presentation or today's webinar. Look, on my behalf, I'd like to thank our colleagues in the UK for their ongoing engagement and cooperation, including on today's event. I'd like to sincerely acknowledge the work that has been done across the country, the length and breadth of the country, by both industry and by competent authorities in order to try and meet the certification challenge. It is the case, it is not going to be business as usual. I think if I've learned anything since the start of the year, it is that by working together and collectively, that we can try and address and overcome the significant challenges that lie ahead. From a strategic point of view, Ireland has significant ambitions to grow our agri-food exports over the next 10 years. The UK is our nearest and most important trading partner, and that will continue to be the case in the years ahead. Agri-food businesses, the length and breadth of this country, provide employment and contribute greatly to the rural economy. And I can assure you that no stone will be left unturned or is being left unturned in order to meet the certification challenge and adhere to the UK import requirements. I would finish also that the art of politics is interesting, and it's all about the possible. And I showed you in our slide the impact that the checks are having on controls in Irish ports. Obviously, an SBS agreement, if the political will and a way could be found to having such an agreement, would reduce the impact of the non-tariff barriers on trade for the benefit of all exporters in the UK and in Ireland. And I leave on that note. So thank you all very much and have a nice day.